Good morning, ladies. Ladies? Yes. Gentlemen. So 15 minutes, if I got it, just 15 minutes, then you push me out. So I will try to be straight to the point. So I would like just in the next 15 minutes to share with you why, as a new company, as a startup company, we made some choice, some strategic choice regarding the open source software. I'm not trying to convince you, because I know that as a community and such knowledgeable people, I don't need to convince you. I just want to share with you why we have made that strategic choice. And in order to understand it, I need to share with you some market analysis that we have done. Because we are a startup, as I told you, but a special one, I would say, because our shareholder invested $300 million to create an infrastructure as a service company. So the market we are targeting is the EIS market. So in order to make some choice in terms of technology, we try to analyze the market and to understand the first thing is the cloud computing a revolution or just a technology evolution, a new cycle? And we came to the conclusion, and we share that conclusion, of course, with a lot of people, that it's really a revolution for three reasons. Because there is three main forces which sustain the cloud computing today. The first one is, yes, it's a new technology cycle. But it's not only a new technology cycle. I've here looked back the 40, 50 years, and you can see that every 10, 15 years you have a new technology cycle, the mainframe, the mini computing, the microcomputing. Then you have the internet in the mid of the 90s, and in the mid of the 2000s was what I call the communication everywhere, anytime. So what is important is to understand that behind the technology there is two forces which are sociological forces and individual forces. First, there is a power shift from the data center manager, from the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, and the group of the CIO to the end user. For those of you who remember how it was in the 70s, basically as a user, if you want to express a need, you have to queue and wait for the CIO decision, and the decision was often, guys, come within the next 12 months and we may have an answer for you. And that's why it was a frustration for the end user. And that's the main reason why the microcomputer came in the beginning of the 80s at the back of the CIO. And if you look, who pushed the company to open to the internet their interface? It's the user. It's not the CIO who decided to open to the internet world their own company. And if you look now in the 2000s, who basically pushed to get the smartphone, the tablets connected to the company? It's again the user. So there is a paradigm shift where, because the user is much more knowledgeable today than it was 30 years ago, he can dictate what he wants and how he wants it. If you look at the social network, every large company is talking about an internal social network, but it's coming from the user. So that's very, very important because it's a paradigm shift within the company. And the third force is basically, again, back in the 70s, beginning of the 80s, it was quite easy. You know, when we were used to leave the enterprise, we enter in our private world, and until the next day, we stay in the private world. But today, the border between what is private and what is the professional life completely disappear, and the two worlds are merged, and it has been, of course, helped by the mobility and by the communication. The ability to be always connected to your private data, or private interest, but also connected to your professional life. So these three forces basically converge, but we have to keep in mind also in which environment we are today. And we have, again, two elements which basically structure the market today. One is the economical pressure that we have. Every company is under pressure from an economic standpoint. So basically, you have to deliver more with less. And it's also a pressure which basically is put on the CIO in the company. But also we are facing an environment where basically whatever we're doing, we have a digital footprint. So these digital footprint are collected and are generated a lot of data. And all of you, you're convinced that the big data is also part of that revolution, you know? Because with all this data, you can get information, you can get knowledge, and basically you can define new business model to bring solution to some customer in the market. So we are in an environment where basically all these forces converge to generate a new way to do things. And it's why we think that as a company that the cloud is here, and it's a disruptive, not only disruptive technology, it's a disruptive way to do things for private people, for companies, for professionals. But we try to define, there is a lot of, you know, companies which claim to be cloud ready or cloud services. So we have defined 3 criteria in order to say, yes, if you answer yes to these 3 criteria, there is a chance that you're really a cloud service provider. So the first one is you pay as you go, meaning that if you don't use, you don't pay anything. So if you have to pay a monthly fee or a yearly fee, it's not a cloud services, because the main change in terms of the way you consume the IT services is the fact that you pay as you go. The second point is the elasticity, meaning that if you have an application, that application runs on an infrastructure, and the application needs more power, more storage, more compute capacities, you should get it right away. But more important, if the application does not need that level of compute, then it can release these capacities. So it's a question of elasticity up and down at any time. And the third point is the fact that these services should be, you know, consumed in a very simple way through a self-service approach. You should buy through self-service, you should buy these services, consume these services, build on these services to generate a new solution for the market you want to address. So what is interesting to understand, does the IT market is going through a specific, you know, pattern? Not at all. Because if you look around us, in fact, you see that it's when an industry reaches a level of maturity in their usage, they start to enter in a way to do their business, which is a mutualization. I don't know if it's the English word, you know, but a mutual approach, meaning that you share the infrastructure, you share the services, you share everything. If you go in an hotel, you book a room, you use the room, you pay for the room, you don't pay anything else. You pay additional services eventually. It's the same in France. You have 2 examples here with bicycle and cars, where basically you can use a car or you can use a bicycle, and you have to pay for the usage you have. So my point is, it's something which is not new. And even when you look at our industry, when I said that the infrastructure goes through a consumerization process, it's back to the electricity. If you go back to the beginning of the 20th century, the end of the 19th century, basically when you were building a manufacturing plant, with the manufacturing plant, you were building a power electricity entity to provide the electricity for the plant. And only 10, 20, 30 years later, they start to stop to do that and share this power because some specialized companies appear to provide this energy. It's exactly what happened in our industry, in a sense, you know, because we are used to have An enterprise, if you go to the basement or to the first floor, you have the data center for the enterprise with their dedicated server, dedicated storage, dedicated network. We will go through the same process. You know? The data center moved out, and the outsourcing was the first step, because with the outsourcing, you were keeping the ownership of your own infrastructure, but you were sharing the knowledge of the community. So, still 5 minutes. So I would like just to share with you, in that environment, what we are doing, basically, Cloudwatt, we say, okay, how could we in that business, which is a consumerization of the infrastructure, which means that we need to be high volume, low cost. And we came to the conclusion that in order to stay over time very efficient from a cost perspective and from an innovation perspective, which means how to differentiate ourselves, we need to own our architecture. We need to avoid to be locked in by a supplier, because if at one point in time we could be fine or happy with what he's providing, we depend on his roadmap. And if at one point in time he goes left where we think we should go right, we are locked in. And you know how much it costs when you want to be out of that locked. So basically, the first decision was we need to be open software, and that's what we have done. And basically, we made some choices. But we, as I told you, we're in a new company. We were lucky enough to start from a white page. So we could define the DNA of the company, and we put some attributes, which basically are very simple. I will not talk too much about the security. It's obvious that as an infrastructure provider, you need to be secure. That's a key element of the genetic. But I would like just to highlight transparency, reversibility, which are absolutely key. And we are getting that by using open software. So the low-cost aspect means we need to be over time, able to provide services at the cost which is expected from the customer and at the price which is expected by the customer, which means that over time we need to basically be able to make our environment evolve, but under our own decision, not under the decision and the pricing of a supplier. So what we have done, for the framework at the operating level, we decided to go OpenStack, and we are now part of the OpenStack community. So for our e-commerce site, we selected PrestaShop. For the CRM system, we selected Sugar CRM, and you have the other choice we have made. But what is important, what we have done, we selected a number of partners to help us to develop the system. Because what we are expecting from being part of the open community is, of course, to share the R&D, to share the maintenance cost, and to share the integration cost. So for us, being part of the open community means to take and give back to the community. There is no way you can take without giving back, otherwise you're not part of the community. You start to be a proprietary system. So it's in our DNA, in order to stay transparent, to stay reversible, we need to be part of the open community, meaning that we need to respect the attributes of the community. And that's something we have done and put in our DNA. 15 minutes gone. So if there is question later, I'm here for the on-time warning. Thank you.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much, Patrick. Thank you for abiding by the 15 minutes. You still had another 30 seconds, Okay. And I recall that to innovate in large volume and low-cost business, you need to own the infrastructure. That's a key lesson. We'll think about that. And open source allows you to do that. Our next speaker is ready there and is one of our sponsors from Open Social. I'm very pleased to welcome Mike